episode 294 of the CRICKETher Weekly. It was fantastic to have so many views of last week's episode where we talked about the conclusion of the World Cup and India's victory in the final against South Africa. So hope that you're still with us this week. And it's a bit odd because there's not been any World Cup cricket to watch this week, Sid.
Yeah, where's my World Cup at 10 o'clock every morning? But, you know, well, we've had to find other things to do with our lives. We've got WBBL starting this week, this morning. We'll come back to that later. But first of all, you know, what have you been up to this week? And did it involve lunch, Raf?
It did involve lunch. So I'm involved in an organisation called the Cricket Society, who are basically a UK-based organisation, although they do have international members, for anyone who loves cricket, whether that be playing it, watching it, engaging with it, umpiring in it, etc, etc. And yeah, so it's a fantastic organisation. We're actually 80 years old this year. I haven't been a member for quite that long.
So younger than most of the members then, apart from you.
But every year we have an awards lunch in London, and we have a number of different awards, but I get the job of kind of emceeing the lunch, so I get to announce all the award winners and read out the citations talking about their achievements.
Awards handed out by Alex Stewart this year,
Yeah, they were, yeah, which is very, very exciting. And obviously I've got a particular soft spot for the two women's cricket awards that we have. So we have a kind of senior women's cricket award and a junior women's cricket award. So one is for sort of most promising young cricketer, young female cricketer, and that usually goes to somebody who's just about to or has just broken into the England team over the last year. And this year's winner was Davina Perrin, who unfortunately couldn't be at the lunch because she's obviously in WBBL.
We'll come back to that.
We will come back to that. But her parents were there to collect the award, so that was really nice. And then we have what's called the Charlotte Edwards Award. We did ask Lottie's permission a few years ago when we started this award, and that's for the best under 16 kind of schoolgirl cricketer in England. And
some fantastic pedigree with this award, isn't there? The list of previous winners who have gone on to, you know, become professional cricketers. You know,
well, the first winner was a certain Alice Capsey, which is quite an exciting one. Also, Davina Perrin is a former winner of this award. Amu Surinkuma, who's obviously now playing professionally. And last year's winner was Eve O'Neill, a really exciting leg spinner. There's a good chance we'll be seeing her make her professional debut next year, we think. Yeah, for Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Yeah, so very exciting. So this year's winner was another young leg spinner called Venus Weerappuli, who she actually lives in Yorkshire, but she plays her cricket in Lancashire.
Oh, controversial.
I know. And also an interesting name, and she was actually named after Venus Williams, the tennis player. Okay. So there's not many of those knocking around in cricket. But yeah, it was great to meet her and her parents and just have a chat to her about you know, what she's done so far and what she's hoping to achieve. And obviously that dream of a professional career within cricket is so in reach now for so many you know, young women of that age, and that's really exciting. And it's always exciting to kind of meet somebody, and given what some of the previous award winners have gone on to do, you just kind of go, well, you know, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, we'll expect her to be hitting a century in the 100 in about 3 years' time.
Well, I mean, she's predominantly a bowler, Sid, so that would be a bit of a surprise, but maybe tearing up the world with her leg spin a la Alana King or anyone else, because I understand that Venus does actually turn the ball, so that's quite an asset for a leg spinner in England.
So anyway. Remember the name.
Exactly. Now, Sid, as you've just mentioned, you have been watching WBBL, which has started today, and you are the early riser in this relationship. So how did Davina Perrin get on for the Renegades today?
Well, to put it in the form of an emoji, Raf.
Okay, for anyone who's listening and not watching, if you know the emoji that's baring its teeth, rather anxiously, then that's the emoji face that Sid just did.
Yeah,
so she didn't get on too well.
Ball angled across her, very first ball of the innings for the Melbourne Renegades, her first ball in WBBL, angled across her. She went fishing well outside her off stump and edged it to the keeper.
Okay.
So
this was against, but this
not
was
an ideal start.
This was against the Heat, but the Renegades did win.
But the Renegades did go on to win the game. Yeah, Alice Capsey, who that former winner of that Schoolgirl Award.
Yeah.
She took 3 wickets in the reply.
Because there's actually quite a lot of English players this year. I think that the total is 15, if I've done my maths correctly, and 4 of those 15 are playing in WBBL for the first time. One of which is obviously Davina Perrin. No surprise, given that presumably somebody was watching that innings in the 100 in WBBL and was like, right, let's get on the phone to her agent.
As soon as somebody drops out, that you're looking around, and so
exactly.
She replaced Hayley Matthews technically, I believe.
Yeah.
So Hayley Matthews drops out, you're looking around going, who's hot at the moment, and that's what an innings like that can do for your career.
Absolutely. The other 3 who are playing this year who haven't played before are Paige Schofield, who's playing for the Scorchers, Freya Kemp, also playing for the Scorchers, and Maddie Villiers, who's playing for the Sixers, who I believe are playing now as we're recording this. Yeah,
we'll be turning that on again after we've recorded. And I think that it's a funny thing about these overseas gigs, particularly at WBBL. It's almost easier to get your first WBBL gig than it is to get repeat gigs. You can one performance that blows things out of the water, like the Davina Perrin thing, can get you your first gig, but you've got to really go over there, and there's a very, very high expectation to perform. You can't go over there and be mediocre. You need to be really good to get asked back next year, and that's the challenge for all these players, to go over there and put in the performances and kind of be part of that team environment as well, because that also matters in terms of people wanting to retain you. If you're a good team player and are seen to be kind of participating and supportive of your teammates and friendly and fun, then those things can be positives, but ultimately it all comes down to performances. You go out there and you perform, and then you will continue to be asked back, and you can be the kind of the Danny Wyatt over the next 15 years that goes back every year. And we've just seen Danny Wyatt herself have a fantastic innings. So she didn't quite make a century. She had that one of those challenges where she was like, can I get to the 100 with enough runs? They needed like 14 and she needed to get 12 of them to get her century. So she tried to hit big and got caught. She made a 90 as the Hurricanes made a good start to their season as well.
Yeah.
So excited for these players, but they've really got quite a lot to prove now. I think that Freya Kemp in particular is, someone that we see as a really exciting player. I really hope she goes over there and shows the Australians, what she can do with the bat, because that seems to be so key for her career going forwards now.
We don't know whether she's going to be able to bowl. She has been described in some of the sort of previews around WBBL as an all-rounder, but she obviously hasn't bowled competitively very much over the last kind of year or so because of sort of ongoing injuries.
Yeah, basically.
And your theory was always that she should just accept it and turn herself into a batter. And she actually, I think she actually got a sort of semi shout out by Charlotte Edwards after the World Cup. Because Charlotte Edwards was asked about left-handers, and she said,
She was definitely talking about Grace Scrivens, Raf.
Oh, right, okay, yes.
No, she probably was talking about Freya Kemp.
I think she probably was more likely to be talking about Freya Kemp. And actually, that Kemp wasn't able to make the World Cup because of injury. And so now it's a little bit of a chance for her kind of ahead of the sort of England reset, ahead of the T20 World Cup next year, to go, look at me, and actually potentially I am worth it on my batting alone. I don't know what situation she's in with her bowling.
Yeah, she's definitely a classic of the kind of hits a long ball thing. She can hit the ball. Apparently, the range hitting stats that they do, like in training and things, she's regularly hitting it further than anybody else. Including the big names like Nat Silverbrunt and Tammy and that lot. So she can hit it a long way. She just needs to be that little bit more consistent. It's not quite all about big hitting, but I'm really excited to see how she gets on WBBL.
Yeah.
I look forward to some early mornings over the next few weeks and watching her play.
Yeah, we're freezing cold, wrapping ourselves in blankets, watching everyone in the lovely Australian summer. I'm very jealous. I wish we were going back this winter, Sid. Anyway, Bit of a nice segue actually, thinking about kind of next year in England, because we are starting to get some quite significant announcements about what next season in England is going to look like. And there have been a couple in particular this week that I just wanted to pick up on. The first is about Fran Wilson, who on the same day announced her retirement from playing, and was then very well timed this. I'm sure everyone was had pre-planned this. About an hour after her announcement, her retirement announcement came out, it was Gloucestershire put out a press release to say that Fran Wilson is becoming their new women's head coach as of now, basically. So I've got to say, from a Somerset perspective, I had a quick squiz at the numbers, and I'd be quite worried about the fact that they're no longer going to have Fran Wilson services to call on, because she was, after Sophie Laugh, their leading run scorer across the 2025 season, and they didn't have a brilliant season, and to be kind of so reliant on a couple of people with the bat, and then one of them essentially retires and disappears, that's a little bit worrying for Somerset. Of course, that's not Fran Wilson's problem, and presumably we think that the Gloucestershire job became available, she applied for it, got it, and then was like, right, well, that's my next logical step.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously been kind of pushing towards this for a long time. That whole generation of England players of her age, of course, they all did their coaching badges, or at least the first three levels. The level 4, the final level, the kind of the ultimate uber level of coaching badges is a bit of a different proposition. But the first three levels are levels that you can do in conjunction with other things. They're not really a full-time commitment. So that generation of England players all got their coaching badges up to level 3 really early, because they were at the age where they were doing the chance to shine thing, and getting your coaching badges was a way to be able to earn money when they couldn't still earn any money directly from playing cricket. So, you know, and then Fran Wilson has obviously kind of kept that going. She's done some other work. She's done some other academic stuff. And so she's spent quite a lot of time kind of moonlighting in rugby. She's done a lot of work with one of the local rugby teams there. Is it Bristol? I can't remember if it's Bristol or Gloucester. So apologies, Fran, I shouldn't remember which one. I should have looked it up. But, you know, she's obviously kind of been planning this kind of move into coaching. And it's kind of interesting, I think, that, you know, her going off and, you know, doing some work in a different sport, because that does give you a slightly wider perspective. I'm sure that Courtney Winfield Hill, you know, will see some positives in that as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, herself also been heavily involved in rugby league and cricket. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where Fran Wilson goes. You know, level 4. Level 4 is the highest level of kind of coaching certificate that you can do. That's the top level, and that's much more like doing kind of a master's degree. It's a really serious proposition. It takes 2 years, and you've got to like write proper essays and, you know, do like a dissertation.
And it's quite difficult to actually even get onto it in terms of it's quite a stringent application process. So my feeling is that probably Gloucestershire will kind of sponsor Fran Wilson to do that level 4, and then in a couple of years' time she'll be really well placed to potentially go on and apply to do a coaching role in Tier 1. So it's great. It's a very obvious and exciting career move for her. I think. Favourite Fran Wilson memories, Sid? Mine is 2019 at Chelmsford, watching her take. It's got to be one of the top 5 catches I've seen live, just flying.
Top 5 catches. When we talked about the video, you said it was in the top 3 catches. Has it been demoted, Raph?
It hasn't been demoted. I haven't quite got them all in my head. The other 2 that I could think of off the top of my head were the Ash Gardner catch at Hobart from the Ashes earlier this year, and the Harleen Deal catch on the boundary at Northants, both of which I saw live. And obviously I saw the Fran Wilson one at Chelmsford live, and it was just her kind of flying through the air. I think she was probably fielding at backward point because that's where she tended to field. And yeah, it was like full on Superman style catch.
Yeah, and it was she had so little time to react as well. It was like she needed to start the dive almost before the ball was actually hit. And so yeah, fantastic catch. And definitely probably the best one I've ever seen live. Okay. And then for me, it's the Harleen one. Yeah, definitely. That was a fantastic piece of kind of sort of art history. It's like you were like watching a moment of ballet.
And it was like you just never saw anyone do that at that time in women's cricket. That was the first kind of boundary parry catch that I ever saw.
And then, well, for me, nothing else is going to top the catch Maya Boucher took at Wokingham for Middlesex against Berkshire. This was so long ago that it was when the county championship was still played in whites, because she was wearing a white.
And there's no video.
There is a video. It's in my head.
No,
fantastic
but you can't show it to anybody.
Sadly, I can't. I wonder if Maya even remembers. She probably doesn't.
Well, she does take quite a lot of good catches, so maybe it's not even in her top 3, Sid. Anyway, Fran Wilson was obviously a fantastic fielder, and I guess that will help in terms of coaching, because if she can bring some of those standards to Gloucestershire to Tier 2, then they're going to be a hard taskmaster. Force to be reckoned with. Yeah, exactly. So that's exciting. Another really interesting announcement this week, Sid, about next season. Mary Taylor is moving from Hampshire to Warwickshire.
No, that's Millie Taylor that's moving from Hampshire. It already happened a year ago, right? Millie Taylor moved from Hampshire to Warwickshire. It was a year ago.
Yeah, no, her sister is joining her at Warwickshire.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is kind of, it is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting from their perspective, the twins reunited thing. You obviously did an interview with them, and Millie was kind of loving life as a sort of independent person, wasn't she? But
she was.
Mary's obviously been kind of, she's seen how well Millie's done, how successful she's been.
I think that maybe actually playing again together for the 100 potentially had an impact on this. Because they definitely, so I interviewed them right at the end of the 100, and they definitely had really enjoyed being back together again. You know, it's like you always have somebody to go to breakfast with, you always have somebody to go for coffee with, you always have somebody to compare notes with after you have a difficult session in the nets or whatever. And that's really nice, and I do think that Mary in particular had been really missing that. I think that Millie had enjoyed that opportunity to kind of move away from home and be independent, but now they're both going to have moved away from home and kind of share that a bit more. So I think it's really interesting that Warwickshire have potentially actually almost picked up on that and picked up on what happened at the Phoenix and gone, oh, okay, like we're gonna actually snap her up, because you know, she has had a decent couple of years. Obviously Millie probably had a better season overall, but Mary, that finishing the season, that semi-final at Hampshire, I know I keep banging on about it, but it is one of the most exciting matches I've seen in the last few years, and actually getting that first List A 50, really important innings in the semi-final, and so yeah, definitely kind of made herself marketable and you know, probably generated a bit of interest, maybe from other counties as well, I don't know, but I think it's really interesting. It's great for Warwickshire.
Warwickshire continue to make smart signings.
Yeah.
You know,
they've got whoever's doing that, whoever's like the brains behind. I mean, obviously Laura McLeod will be involved in that, but presumably there'll be a couple of other people who are sort of on the hunt in terms of like chatting to various agents.
And they're building a team of good young players. What they haven't done is gone and signed. They didn't go and sign the Elise Perry. They left that to Hampshire to blow quite a lot of money on Elise Perry. Well, they've made these smart signings of younger players that are, have got 10 years of career, 15 years of career perhaps, if you're lucky, ahead of them. And they're building a really good side. Warwickshire's situation is really, there's a really great piece in the CRICKETher magazine. If you go and, it's just a little bit of an aside, if you go and read the CRICKETher magazine, there's a really great piece on county finances. Which they do every year, but worth a read if you're interested in county cricket. And Warwickshire are one of the teams that are in a reasonably good shape financially. Actually, to be fair, the piece says that none of the teams at the moment are complete basket cases. And the piece interestingly tried to kind of put aside the 100 money. It said, we're not going to really look at the 100 money. We're going to kind of pretend that that's a long-term thing, and look at how the clubs are prospering over and above that. And nobody's a basket case, but Warwickshire are definitely one of the teams that have got a little bit more money to spend. That was not the money that Surrey have got. Surrey remain like way. Surrey's profits are like up here on the graph, and Warwickshire's are here, and then some of the other people's are down quite. Most of the rest of them are kind of down here. Lancashire are the other ones that are kind of competing with sort of Warwickshire about that middle tier. Anyway, but Warwickshire are obviously kind of spending their money and looking to do something over the long term, which is what I think is really interesting about these signings.
That is really
interesting. All these younger players that are going to be really good players in 4 or 5 years' time. So if you want to put money on who's going to win the county championship, or the One Day Cup in 2030, look at Warwickshire.
I must admit though, my instant reaction on seeing that Mary Taylor news was to go, gosh, Hampshire are in real trouble because
Oh gosh.
who is going to open the bowling for them?
Well, Freya David.
Yeah. Freya Davies has just retired.
Yes.
Mary Taylor has now moved to Warwickshire.
Alice Monaghan. Oh no, she went to Surrey last year.
And Lauren Bell is going to be, largely speaking, off with England, looking at the schedule for next season, given the World Cup, and they're trying to fit in a bilateral series with, is it New Zealand and India before the World Cup even starts. The England players are
Lauren
not
Bells
going to be
and
playing
Lindsay Smiths
domestic
are not
cricket.
going to be playing a lot of domestic cricket next year.
No, so Hampshire are really in the... They're in a bit of trouble, Sid.
Yeah, I suggested on social media that maybe you've got a chance of opening the bowling for Hampshire.
I don't think so. I think they have to be exceptionally desperate.
I think they are exceptionally desperate. I suspect.
Maybe.
You've got Adam Carty's number. Give him a call, Raf. You never know. Adam, if you're watching, you've got Raf's number. Send her a text.
All right, we'll keep you updated on the CRICKETher Weekly. Should
Raf get an official trial at Hampshire?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that was my first thought. That actually, Hampshire have it feels that they've botched things a little bit here.
Well, it's kind of it wasn't great last season, and it feels like things are not. Yeah, they haven't got Charlotte Edwards kind of there to keep people around anymore as well. So Charlotte Edwards was a huge factor in people staying.
Yeah,
people were starting to leave already, but Charlotte Edwards was a huge factor in the ones that stayed. And now that she's gone, yeah.
Yeah, so what will Hampshire do? They're going to be looking around. I suspect if you're a young up and coming fast bowler and you're looking around for somewhere for your agent to get in touch with, then get on the phone to Adam Carty at Hampshire.
Yeah, they what they really need as well is an overseas that's going to stay for the entire season next year as well. And preferably a fast bowler. I know that they really like Charlie Knott, but they're probably going to need a fast bowler as their overseas and one that's going to stay for the whole season.
Yeah, okay, really interesting. Anyway, I've no doubt that more signings and moves will be announced over the next few weeks. So we'll discuss more of that in future episodes. But Sid, moving slightly further afield and almost circling back to kind of where we started at the start of this episode, reflecting on the end of the World Cup. Cricket in India doesn't stand still because we've got the WPL auction coming up. I believe it's going to be on the 27th of November. So that meant that this week, just a few days after the World Cup final, teams had to announce which players they were going to retain. Unsurprisingly, Nat Sevabrunt, Smriti Mandana and Ash Gardner were all retained for the maximum price, which is 3.5 crore. Don't ask me to translate that into other currencies.
It's a lot of money.
I might struggle, but it's quite a lot, isn't it?
It's in the region of $500,000.
There was maybe a few surprises in terms of people who weren't retained. So Deepti Sharma was not retained. Alyssa Healy, Meg Lanning, Mealy Kerr, all not retained. And perhaps teams being strategic. I don't know. What did you make of it all, Sid?
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting. Some of those non-retentions are obviously because you could only basically retain really 5 players. I think it was technically possible to retain 6, but you'd have to juggle because there were other rules about retentions, like only so many Indian players, only so many overseas, and so on. But the big successful teams have all retained like 4 or 5 players. Delhi Capitals, RCB, Mumbai Indians, they've all, retained 4 or 5. So that means that all the best players that are being successful in the WPL context are all being retained. And it kind of makes this mega auction feel a lot less mega to me, because if all your top players are being retained, you say some players have been let go. The players that have been let go tend to largely be, for me, it's the people that are a little bit kind of fading names, like Meg Lanning. I mean, Meg Lanning was a great player, but she's starting to fade. She's now only playing, the really big tournaments. She's continuing to play in Australia and it's continuing to make an impact. But, she's basically winding down her career here.
And similarly with Healy.
Deandra Dottin, Sophie Devine, Shabnam Ishmael, people have been quite kind of hard-nosed about that. They haven't let the fact that these people have had glorious pasts particularly influence them. I mean, and we're seeing that a little bit in the 100 as well, because Meg Lanning's price dropped significantly when she moved in the 100 last year.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that have been let go are kind of the ones where you go, well, yeah, I can sort of see why they've been let go, because they probably are coming towards the end. You don't want to kind of strike a new longish term deal with them. There are some big names. I mean, particularly as you say, I mean, it's like, so UPW have only had one retention, and they've let go Dipti and Sophie Eccleston and Alana King, for example. But the trouble is that what UP are going to find out is that, well, you can let those players go, but who are you actually going to get in place of them? Because the top players have all been retained. So I think that, UP Warriors and Gujarat Giants are just going to play a bit of musical chairs, and some players will move from one to the other. I suspect that some of those players they've been let go they'll just try and buy back at perhaps a lesser price. And like UPW have got a huge amount of purse remaining, but it's difficult to see what they're going to do with that purse. I mean, there's lots of local players. Very few local players, apart from the big Indian names, have been retained. Because the system kind of pushed towards that, really. There's going to be some good young players coming through, and you'll be able to get some of those sort of middling players, perhaps the ones that never quite played for India, but are still decent players. But those big names, I'm not sure that. So I just feel that this mega auction is just like going to turn into a little bit of a damp squib, because there won't really be those big headlines coming out of it.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Well, we shall have to see. As I say, it's in a couple of weeks' time, and no doubt we will be reflecting after the fact on the CRICKETher Weekly. So stay tuned. Thank you for being with us this week, as ever, and keep enjoying the WBBL, because we will be, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.